So that's what's going on, is that we are quickly and swiftly moving to a cashless society as we speak, but Florida says no. Now, here's one thing that I really want to talk about is who is also behind this. Because yes, naturally, a lot of people want to go cashless as well. But when it comes to the push, corporations seem to be pretty keen on allowing this to happen. And it's like, why? Because sometimes they resist change, but this one, they're pretty welcome to it. Y'all know where I'm going with this. You know. So let me share you something with you. I'm going to share this article with you guys because I saw this and I was just like, what in the world is going on? So this story was crazy. Let me see. Yes. So if anybody knows that there is a push to make our entire nation cashless, but they're saying not in Florida. Nope, not today. So this is out of the Orlando Sentinel. It says Florida may ban most businesses from going cashless. Proposal has Democratic and Republican support. Just before we get into it, Noah, what's your thought about going cashless?
I think it's a product of the full financialization of our entire economy, which has so many negative outcomes. This is central to understanding the situation of the U.S. right now, and it connects to this, right? Is what we at the Institute called reproletarianization, right? That the Federal Reserve and the Treasury and these giant financial institutions all work in concert, right? And basically, it's just a new extraction machine. But it's scary because it like what it does is it gives the ability of the state to completely take everything you own, right? If there's no cash, if it's all just in the ether, in the abstract, the idea of money within your account, it can all be taken, which is fine if there is a government genuinely working in the interests of the people that is proving that every day, and can show that through support, right? But only 11% of people think that our government is working in our interests. So for them to actually ban cash is only going to be used against us, and I think people are aware of that.
Yeah, thank you so much for that analysis. Let's continue. Let's continue in this article. So this says grabbing a latte or bagel or an empanada at Circle House Coffee in Fort Lauderdale requires a credit or debit card or smartphone payment app. Cash isn't accepted. It says the same is true starting yesterday, January 1st, for tickets, a drink, or snack at the Arts Garage Visual and Performing Arts venue in Delray Beach. The county-owned arena in Sunrise, home to the Florida Panthers hockey team and venue for events ranging from Drake concert to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, is a cashless building. Even though naming rights are held by Amerant, the largest community bank headquartered in Florida. So let's take a look at this. It says a cashless trend. It says a growing number of businesses of all sizes are going cashless, requiring patrons to use credit or debit cards or smartphone apps to pay for their purchases. It says the trend is an inconvenience for people who prefer to use cash. The big problem for others, including lower income people who don't have access to non-cash payments, and some older people who aren't proficient with app-based payments. So right here, as you can see, it already has a issue in a dividing of people who are part of a lower class. So taking a look at that, it is already giving a disparity. So let's take a look at this. It says Marjorie Waldo, president and CEO of the Arts Garage in Delray Beach, said the overwhelming majority of people already use credit cards to buy tickets, spend at the bar, and make donations. One recent night, they said about 25% of the drink and snack sales were made in cash. The New Year's move to cashless payments will make for a better experience to patrons. That's what they say, which is, it may be for some. And then they go over how it is more efficient to go cashless. This is their explanation. And Noah, you're gonna catch this right off. So it says, they say it is easier for cash to not be counted by the bartender at the end of the shift and at the back end, then verified by the house manager at the front end or the back end of the shift, and then counting by the leadership team, and then physically taken to the bank. It is not difficult to accept cash. It's just a little more streamlined and easier and less time consuming. What does that read to you, Noah?
I'm sorry. Are they saying people can't fucking? I am so sorry to swear. Are they saying people are like having a hard time fucking counting? I was a bartender for a very long time, by the way, before I moved back to Ohio, and that is insane. Counting money is not difficult. What it does is that tip jar, it removes it entirely, right? There's that. Any bartender is going to get a lot less tips, but what it sounds to me like there's some deals going on with the credit card companies.
I say you're absolutely right on that. I agree with that. I also want to add this. They want to cut down the time it takes to do the job so that they can pay people less.
Oh yeah, there's that too, of course. Any way that they can sort of cut down on that variable capital expense, right, is very important. I think I don't know, here's the thing, a bartender or a service worker inside one of these giant things, right? Their pay is not part of what is creating the profits of that thing. Not really. Like, they're not contributing to making the commodities being sold, right? They're not adding value to anything. And their labor, because of, and this is a wild thing to think about, because of the way finances worked and inflated things at such a high rate, their labor is already a huge expense to these people, right? A huge expense that they don't have an ability to control through creation of more value. So as things get more expensive and they need to pay people more, and then things get more expensive and they need to pay people more again, right? These bartenders need to be able to live. The people selling nachos need to be able to live, etc. It's inflating that wage, right? And this makes us almost parasitic on our own wage, if you think about it, right? Which is a weird thing, that just a weird quirk of financial capitalism. But anytime, so how do you get rid of that, right? You do exactly what you're talking about. You cut down on their ability to work, right? You automate jobs. You cut down on the hours they can go there, et cetera, et cetera. It sounds a lot like, I remember when there was like this new tool and die type of machine that my dad's union was really against, right? Because before that, it took like brains to go from one machine to another and figure out where things were intersecting. But once they installed this, literally just pushed one button and covered both of them, right? And it de-skilled that job. And so the ability of that worker to actualize a higher wage got lowered because they didn't need that training anymore. So it's just like this, that couple hours taken out for counting is going to just affect the worker. I'm sorry to ramble at that, but yeah.
No, yeah, that's basically what I was getting at too. So ultimately, that's what it's about. Whenever capitalists talk about efficiency, it means more money in their pockets for the shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go down to left behind. It says Jones says there's significant drawbacks to drawing when businesses decline to accept cash. It says we're definitely leaving some people behind. Payment methods like credit and debit cards aren't as available to lower income people as to those with higher incomes. And older people aren't as lucky to have or be comfortable with payment apps as people who are millennials or younger. So that's another variable. It says when cash isn't accepted, you're basically disenfranchising or cutting off entire communities. So, and then this one's talking about how they're trying to make it there's no cash. There's no, there, all the venues are cashless. So this talks about the legislation, Senate Bill 106, House Bill 35. Says we require most businesses to accept cash payments and prohibit them from charging a fee or placing conditions on accepting cash. They had to accept cash for any transaction involving any purchase of any tangible good or any service. It will apply to business operating at a fixed location from a vehicle or mobile space or from temporary physical premises. So basically this says you guys have to still charge no matter what. You guys have to still accept cash. Even if you don't want to, that's how it has to be. Because you are not going to be disenfranchising other people within the state. And
I'm so surprised. I really am. That the Democrats and Republicans there in Florida aren't on the other side of this. I would have put money on them being with the credit card companies on this. I really would have.
It is interesting. And the fact is that in Florida, of all places, this is why I'm just like, this is interesting. Because they're saying, no, you are going to still keep using cash. And one of the things that I think is really important that a lot of people don't think of is that you also put a burden, not a burden, you also take the ability of privacy away, because when you're using digital currency, you can track that currency no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And now
how do you track missing people or fugitives?
Yeah. And so the money that you are using that's digital, well, the government can see everything you purchase in the things that you have transactions for. Now, while in a sense it's like, well, if you don't have anything to hide, then you should be fine. That is true. Do you want government looking at you at every single point of your life? Especially when the government doesn't actually work for your interests. If they are on the side of capital, I don't want them to have the ability to see every little thing I do just so that they can sell me off to the highest bidder.
Yep.
That's bad thing.
Unfortunately, so my mom has some health issues, so I'm going to have to run out on you pretty soon, brother. But before I go, I do want to say, this is going to date me again. A long time ago, a book was written by an anti-communist named George Orwell, right? Horrible human being, snitch, just one of the worst, right? But he writes this book, 1984. And it was supposedly about communism, right? Where the government was watching people 24/7, literally watching from their TVs and other communications devices, like these guys here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was supposedly communism. They did things like changed what words meant in order to control how people thought of things.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, all of this is happening within capitalist society right now. Mm-hmm. And people get so sort of just blasted with ridiculous anti-communist propaganda, both pretending it's pro-communist and against it, that they like you have millions of people right now who go, oh yeah, that's just because America's communist now, right? Or they go that World Economic Forum, they're all communists. We need to fight against them. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, I'm a communist. I want to fight them too. Why don't we just do it together, right? Like, I don't care. You have weird views, but who cares? You're against them. I'm against them, right? Let's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care what you call them. Call them pink unicorns. Call them magic sparkle wizards. It doesn't matter. Let's fight them, right? And they're like, yeah okay. But they're communists. And I'm like, oh, God.
It's just like when people say, oh, Joe Biden's a communist. I'm like, no, he's not. I'm a communist. I don't like that guy.
Right. They're like, Joe Biden is a communist to them. And that's the Republicans. And literally the Democrats were calling Trump a communist.
Yeah.
You can't win with these people.
They are?
They were, yeah. Don't you remember?
No, I don't remember that. I wasn't paying attention.
Because he was bought by Putin. And he was Putin's puppet. And supposedly Putin is still a communist too. Everyone in Russia is a communist, in case you weren't aware.
Oh gosh.
Anyway, brother, on that note, I'm gonna have to run.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a blast talking to you. We all, everybody at the Institute loves you guys, and the more we do together, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you. Always a pleasure, always an honor.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I will make sure that everybody gets the link to your channel also as well. Thank you so very much.
Have a great night, brother.
All right, good night. All right, so we're going to be continuing on with this story, and then we will get to some of the comments in the chat, but I want to share this as well. Let's go back into this article. So it says, and what is the reason why cash is declining? It says more and more people are going cashless. It is a trend that reflects increasing sentiment among consumers, especially younger ones. The move away from cash was fueled by the early days of the C-19 pandemic. I have to be very careful with what I say on the tube. When many people didn't want to touch money. So apparently, it wasn't just because of people were sticking it up their nose and using it to the twinkle twinkle sauce. It was also because they didn't want to get sick. So let's continue. All right, it says 2022 report from the Pew Research Center found that the share of Americans who don't use cash for any purchase in a week has gone up. So it talks about how it has went up since 2022. And so the demographics are showing that people who are above a certain household will use less cash versus people on lower incomes will use cash a little bit more. And so this talks about how it's bipartisan support, which is shocking to a lot of people. And so I am still surprised that Florida is willing to do this, but there's also some issues regarding, a lot of places trying to go cashless more. And I want to talk about that as well. So let's go here. Did you know there's a reverse version of an ATM? Let me share with y'all this. This thing will cooperate. Thank you. Let me share this with you guys really quick too. Reverse ATMs. This is going to be interesting.
Things are changing fast in this digital world, so much so that a growing number of businesses will not even accept cash anymore.
Yeah, they are starting to set up reverse ATMs. It quickly turns cash into a prepaid debit card to be used on the fly. And Dre Clark explains from New York City. Dre, I've never heard of this. Mitch has never heard of this. What's it about?
Yeah, I never heard of it either until I read about it last night. It's relatively new, but it's slowly but surely catching on. Cash is really still king, but reverse ATMs are definitely the way of the future as more businesses look for ways to go cashless. Here at Madison Square Garden in Midtown Manhattan, they already have machines inside the arena that can actually convert your cash into a debit card here. Now, here you can see exactly how it works. You load money into a kiosk like you see here, and within seconds, you can get a receipt confirming your conversion and a prepaid active card. Many of the prepaid cards are either MasterCard or Visa, and you can use them anywhere where those cards are accepted. Some kiosks may actually charge you a $5 fee for the card. Meanwhile, amusement parks, fast food restaurants, and many professional sports venues are already using the cash to card kiosks, and you'll start seeing more of them in airports and on college campuses. Business owners say they like the kiosk because it helps prevent theft and robberies, and it stops the spread of germs that can really be found on a lot of money that's downright dirty. Now,
I want to talk about something really quick. When it comes to merchants, using cards actually costs money to the merchant. Now, a lot of times what they'll do is that they'll pass that cost on to the consumer. So then it is not as big of a burden on them. But they still have to pay for it. So you're paying either way. Either you're paying staff to count the money at the end, at the beginning and at the end of the shifts, and or you're paying not venues, but companies like Visa, MasterCard, Discover, American Express. You're paying them as well to use their services in order to collect payment. So either or, you're paying. But now there's an excuse saying, well, it's safer, it's healthier, less germs, right? It's faster because all you got to do is swipe. You don't have to count money, don't have to count change, which is true. But what about the privacy aspect about it? It doesn't feel like very private anymore because that money can be tracked. Let's continue.
dirty. Now, many people started going cashless during the pandemic because they did not want to touch money and coins, fearing they could contract the virus. Meanwhile, cities across the country like San Francisco, DC, Philly, and New York, they actually have bans on cashless businesses. So business owners by law cannot refuse to accept any cash from a customer. Also, get this, the FDIC says up to 5% of U.S. households, or 6 million Americans, are considered unbanked. That means they don't have either a checking or savings account. They prefer to deal in strictly cash. So yeah, guys, it's relatively new, but here in New York City and other places around the country, this is the way of the future. Send it back to you.
Thank you for watching.
So that's what's going on, is that we are quickly and swiftly moving to a cashless society as we speak, but Florida says no. Now, here's one thing that I really want to talk about, is who is also behind this. Because, yes, naturally, a lot of people want to go cashless as well. But when it comes to the push, corporations seem to be pretty keen on allowing this to happen. And it's like, why? Because sometimes they resist change, but this one, they're pretty welcome to it. Y'all know where I'm going with this. You know. So let me share you something with you. So they said companies like Visa and MasterCard. Well, I got some numbers for you. We're going to take a look at this as well. So let me share this. Let me go here too. I have this up too. So let me share this first. So if you guys don't know, credit cards have to charge processing fees, right? So even though we're going cashless, who's making bank? Well, here it says for merchants, it can be almost impossible to run a business without taking credit cards. This also includes debit cards. However, the fees from these transactions can eat into profits, making it hard for some merchants with a small spread to stay afloat. The average credit card processing fee ranges between 1.5% to 3.5%. Just where do all these fees come from, and what can a merchant do to minimize them? So, credit card processing fees are the fees that a business must pay every time it accepts credit card payment. There are multiple types of fees associated with each transaction, and fees can vary depending on the type of credit card accepted. So there's interchange fees. It says interchange fees is a payment made directly to the card issuer for the swipe transaction. Fees may vary based on the type of card being used, the amount of the transaction, and the industry the business is in. For example, credit card companies may charge higher interest fees for online purchases since fraud is a bigger problem with these types of transactions. Then you have payment processor fees. Merchant services processor, also called payment processor, can also charge a fee to facilitate the transaction. Merchant fees include monthly fees, pre-transaction fees, equipment fees, late statement fees. This is how a processor makes its money since it gets none of the interchange fees. You have assessment fees, right? So then you go to the major credit card companies. Well, credit card, look at Visa. Visa says their interchange fees is 1.15% plus 5 cents to 2.4% plus 10 cents, right? Then MasterCard is around the same, right? Discover is around the same, a little bit, just starts off a little bit higher. Then, and everybody always tells me this, that American Express always charges the higher, 1.43% plus 10 cents to 3.3% plus 10 cents. So, with that being said, they are making bank because every single time you have to swipe your card, they charge. Look, even PayPal and Square, right? So, with that being said, going cashless is beneficial to these companies. Going cashless will be a boom because less cash means more card transactions. Less cash or no cash means more swipes from their cards, meaning that you are using corporations to pay, meaning there's a digitization of our money. There is a automation of our monetary system that is going on right now, which all goes back to corporations. Now, what is JB about to ask? You know, who owns Visa and MasterCard? Yeah, that's right. That's right. You got it. You got it. Let's go. Let's take a look. Boom. All right. Visa and corporate. Who are some of the biggest shareholders? Can you guess? Go ahead. Guess. Go ahead. Guess for me. I know you want to. Do it. Guess. I know y'all already. Let me look at the chat. Hang on. All right. I'm not gonna wait. I'm not gonna make y'all wait long. But let's get into it. Let's show. All right. So who owns Visa? Top 10 owners of Visa. Oh, what do you know? Who's there at the top with an 8.49% stake? The Vanguard Group. Isn't that right? And look at their little buddy right behind them. Right underneath there, it says BlackRock with a 5% stake. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Vanguard has over $34 billion in stake value. BlackRock has over $20 billion total value of their stake in the company. You see that? You have T. Rowe Price, Fidelity Management, Alliance Bernstein. Look at that. So, that's the top 10 owners of Visa. What about MasterCard? Let's go into MasterCard. Let's take a look. People need to see that. Who owns MasterCard? MasterCard, the top 10 owners. Well. Look who's at the top again. The Vanguard Group and BlackRock. Every single time I see them, every single time I see some shenanigans afoot, it's always these two especially. And then who's in the top 10? Oh, JP Morgan. Interesting. Wow. So, whenever you swipe your card, these companies are literally getting a piece of that pie. Every single swipe, every single time you charge your card online, they get it. They get a piece of it. Whether you buy your card, whether you use your card at a restaurant, whether you use your card to order something online delivered to you. Let's say you're buying a present for your boo thing for Valentine's Day, and you get them some flowers. Well, guess what? Part of that purchase, Vanguard and BlackRock is actually getting some of that money. So when people talk about going to the cashless society as more efficient, really that money is really going towards the Visas and the MasterCards, aka the Vanguards and BlackRocks of this country. And then on top of that, who also loses out? Because when it comes to privacy, you lose out too. And then there's also the class element of it, because not all of us are able to continuously have access to digital currency. So we have to have cash. Some of us got to go and cash our checks at the check cashing place. That's what we have to do. So look, a block from me, there's an Amscot. You know how many check cashing places around me? A bunch. Especially go to an affluent or a nice neighborhood and tell me how many check cashing places there are. Go ahead, tell me how many. No, none. There are none. None. Why? Because when it comes to people who are affluent, they always typically have a bank account. They don't need check cashing places. We do. Those of us who are lower income and poor, we do. We also need those payday loans. So there's a class element to it as well. And so I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to have to give some credit to, these politicians in Florida that are saying, no, you have to use cash. You have to allow people to use cash. I'm actually down for that. Because ultimately, when it comes to, and I'm not saying we shouldn't use digital, right? I use digital. But the thing is that we should have the option. We should have the option to be able to use physical or digital legal tender. That's my thing. So yeah, So that's what's going on right now. I just want to thank you guys for that. That's what's going on in Florida. And so a lot of people who think, well, man, there's nothing we can do to stop this. Look, there are some ways you guys can go about it. You can introduce citizen ballot initiatives in your state, especially if you're in a ballot initiative state, and make it so that it's illegal to refuse physical monetary payment. You could have that put into the law, and you can circumvent the legislator. You can circumvent, the state Senate and the state House. You can circumvent these and have it put into law through a ballot initiative. There are answers to mitigating this until we actually can truly change this country in a more beneficial way for the workers. So just saying, we can look into that. So